Hi, my name's Sheila Henley from Academy for Life, and today I'm going to share with you about the two great eternal destinies, heaven or hell. Immediately some of you might say, oh well, I don't believe in either of those. Okay, let's start with death then. Everybody believes in death because there isn't anybody that's living that doesn't know somebody that's died. So just think about this for a moment. As death finds us, eternity will keep us. I don't know whether you've ever been abroad, but we might go abroad for a week or 2 weeks. We get a brochure, we find out about the currency of the country we're going to, we find out about the people, we find out about the sights that we can see there. And that's just for a holiday that's going to last a week or 2 weeks. Our eternal destiny is going to go on forever and ever and ever. So isn't it important that we stop to find out where we're going to end up? And do we have a choice? Can we do something about whether we end up in heaven or hell? You know, there's a lot of people in the church today and they don't really know what heaven's like. That's why you get these myths about, oh, we're going to be floating around on a cloud playing a harp. No, we're not. Heaven is a real place. I know the Bible tells us it's beyond our imagination, but the Bible tells us lots of things about heaven. But firstly, I just want to go back to death, because the devil is a liar. If you don't remember anything else from today, remember that the devil's a liar. And he tells you that when your friend or your mum has died, that's it, that's the end. You see the body and you go, that's it, death is the end. Well, it isn't. That's a lie. And I'll prove it to you now. Death is an ending, but it's not the end. It's the ending of the relationship between your soul, which is the essential you, and your body. And yes, our bodies do decay. But we're given immortal bodies, incorruptible bodies, as the Bible calls it. And so it's much more healthy to see death as a doorway. It's not an end, it's a doorway into an eternity, either with God, in what the Bible calls heaven, or an eternity separated from God, in what the Bible calls hell. So let's have a look at some of the characteristics of heaven. Well, firstly, let me tell you what you won't find in heaven. You won't find any dying there. You won't find any crying there. You won't find any darkness. You won't find any depression. You won't find any poverty. You won't find any injustice. That's worth it in itself just to go there, isn't it? So what will you find? Beauty, splendour, riches beyond our imagination, oneness with a perfect and holy God, a body that will never wear out. People have asked me, will we have food in heaven? Well, we will. The Bible talks a lot about the feasts of heaven. Will you put on weight? No, because your body will be perfect. But then you wouldn't want to be greedy, will you? Because you'll be perfect in heaven. Is there sex in heaven? Well, you're going to have to get the booklet from Academy for Life to find out about that one. But just to go back to something very special about heaven, there's a heavenly city there. And we're told very clearly in the Bible the measurements of that city. Now get a hold of this. It's 1,500 miles square. It's a cube. And so I want you to get a hold of this, that there is room in heaven for over 100 billion, sorry, I've got it wrong myself, 100,000 billion people. You might say, well, Sheila, I don't do figures very well. Well, let me put that into perspective for you. Today in the world, there are 7 billion people alive. And that is more than all the people who've ever been alive in all the generations before us. So my limited maths tells me that at the very most, there's 13 billion people who've ever lived. Isn't that wonderful to think that not only has God created heaven for each one of us to have a place there, a special place, but there's lots of space as well. Because I'm often asked by people who say, well, how can a loving God send people to hell? Well, you could ask the question the other way round. How can a perfect, holy, absolute God allow anyone into such a perfect place as heaven? Well, he does it through his Son, who became the sacrifice for our sin, so that we can gain entrance into eternity, which is incredible. But God does not send us to hell. Hell was created for Lucifer and the angels who dwelt in the presence of God, who'd seen him face to face, and they rebelled. They rejected God. God had no option then but to reject them. And the devil takes human beings to hell by deceiving us into not believing about God, not believing he's got a way where he can get us back to himself because he loves us so much. And so the devil tells us all sorts of lies. So what about this hell then? It's a place of torment. It's almost the exact opposite of heaven. It's a place where people will have a memory. But I think one of the most, if you like, disturbing but true definitions I've ever heard of hell is that it's truth realised too late. I remember a conversation with a Christian, a Dr. Wilson his name was, and one of his students was an atheist. And he said to him, you know, death's the end. And Dr. Wilson said to him, you're right, young man. Death will be the end of all your ambition. It will be the end of all your relationships. It will be the end of any of your friendships. It will be the end of you hearing the gospel of the good news. And you will live forever in outer darkness. But for me, death is the end of my disappointments, the end of my suffering, the end of my aches and pains. And I go to spend an eternity with Jesus Christ in the beauty, the glory and the splendour of heaven. And the good thing about that story was that young man then said, lead me to Christ. And so I implore you today, whether you're young or whether you're old, whether you think that death is a million years away from you, it can happen today. Do you think Whitney Houston thought that she was taking her last bath that night she died? No, suddenly she woke up in eternity. And it's not for me to tell you whether she's in heaven or hell today, but it is for me to challenge you that they are the greatest realities of life, and we need to decide here and now which one we're going to spend our eternity with. And I know which one I'm signed up to. And if you want to know more, get in touch with Academy for Life. Life now and life throughout eternity.